Hello, welcome to today's video. Today we're going to go over just kind of a simple how-to using an airbrush to weather a tank. It's not as hard as you think, and as a matter of fact, in a lot of ways, weathering might be a good way to start using the airbrush as you get used to how the mechanism works. It's really hard to mess up a weathering job. It can be done, don't get me wrong, but in my opinion, it gives you the opportunity to focus on the light side of airbrushing, the delicate part, delicate touch. Because anybody can push down and pull back and spray paint on a model. That's not what you're trying to do. That's not going to help you really learn to use the airbrush well, at least for a modeling type perspective. So I think it's more important that you learn how to just barely control the amount of paint coming through. So this will serve as a way to maybe get introduced to the airbrush. If you've got one, been afraid to use it for weathering, it's a great way to practice. And I think it's a simple approach compared to some of the other ways, especially if you're not into weathering a lot. Some of you might be interested in doing a lot with weathering, some not so much. So take a look at this video and hopefully you'll pick some things up from it that'll help you get some nice looking tanks with relatively minimal effort using a tool maybe you're not really comfortable with yet. Okay, let's take a look. Okay, so we're going to start with just basically a very simple tank. I'm going to take the approach of essentially just doing the dust weathering. As I mentioned, I want to show you kind of some tips or tricks to do some other weathering effects just with the paint. So let's kind of get started. Okay, now weathering, dust type weathering is really simple, and it's probably the one thing you can do with the least effort that makes the biggest impact on your vehicles. So the key is to kind of have the right color dust, and really, in most cases it's whatever your imagination can come up with, especially in a fantasy type setting or sci-fi setting. But even in a historical setting, there's a lot of variation in dust colors, and you can look at photos, you'll get some ideas. They're all going to be tending toward a really light tan, so it's hard to go wrong, but use your best judgment as far as what looks good to you. So I've mixed up a special mix of what I think is a good earth color, using a couple different Vallejo paints. If you're really interested in how it's mixed, you can check the comments, or not the comments, but the description below. So now, to make this easy, I'm going to use a top feed, basically gravity feed airbrush. So this allows me to set it with a lower PSI, and that's what you really want to be able to do, so that you can get control very finely how much paint is actually coming out. Alright, you want to remove the turret first. Because what you don't want to do is have any hard lines. If you look at the contours of the turret, you'll see it's not perfectly circular. So anytime you try to airbrush or weather underneath that overhang, it's going to show up on the model whenever you turn the turret. So you don't want that to happen. Alright, so we're just going to go ahead and start. Yeah, there we go. Now the best thing to do is start at the bottom. Get your running gear, very lightly apply it, and patience. Do not overdo it, because if you do, you're going to end up getting too much paint on at once. You can almost barely see the changes. And don't get up too close, keep it back, because this is supposed to be like a dust overhang. Let's see as it comes on the model. And doing some vertical gradation. Don't make it even, make it kind of sporadic. hit certain spots a little heavier than others. This is not a time to be applying with even strokes, especially on the wheels and such. You definitely want to have areas that are heavier than others. Now, one thing you can do, over under here, there's the fuel filler. I'll show you a quick tip. You can actually go ahead and apply some of the paint. Get a good amount that you want in the area. Notice I'm taking my time building it up. There we go. Okay, now set the airbrush down real quick. And then using isopropyl alcohol, before it has a chance to really dry hard, you can wet a Q-tip or a cotton swab like this, and underneath the fuel filler you're going to streak it down to pull some of that off. Okay, see that? And wherever you think you have some maybe too heavy, you can, in a twisting motion, again pull it down. This way you get some of that streaking going on. Okay, but especially under the fuel filler. The reason is you want that to look cleaner, significantly cleaner, because when they spill diesel fuel, or whether it's diesel fuel or gasoline, it's actually going to wash the dirt down completely, and you'll use Nuln oil to get that effect, just streaking the Nuln oil down, and that will definitely stand out. Alright, so let's continue. Now you're going to want to also get back in here, inside those dark recesses, and so again, be careful not to apply too much too fast. Just to get some of the brown color back in there. You do the same thing on the other side. Now I've got another side here with the fuel filler, so I'm going to hit that real quick with the alcohol to numb that down, or dull that down and wash it off. Now it has to be light and quick, okay, because you don't want to actually take any of the paint off. Okay? Now on the back, as the tracks come through, finish their surface, they're actually going to kick up a lot of dust, and then as the tank is racing across the battlefield, which it will be doing while it's approaching the engagement area, you're going to kick up dust, and the back end's going to be a little more heavily coated, especially lower, so you're going to actually be a little more liberal in the amount of dust you put down on the back. And again, keeping it pretty even, and on the tracks too. There. Okay. Now when it comes to the surface, you're going to want to try to be uneven, but try to hit the center, the larger panels, like back here on the engine deck, with a little bit more covering than around the edges. You don't want to obscure a lot of the detail, at least in my opinion. again, less is more at the start. You can always dirty it up further. So now in the front, it's not going to be quite the same because again, the dust is being kicked up behind. So here you are going to have some dust. Usually that kicked up from the tanks behind it. So you are going to have some up here, but it doesn't need to be quite as even or heavy. And kind of streaking it or vertically spraying is probably a little better for you, just to get some of the variation. Now remember, in this case, we're dealing more with a very small scale, 1/56 scale. So unlike some of the minute details you'll put on weathering wise on like a 1/35 scale model, you could be a little bit more general and impressionistic, which is what I'm going for here. Now I want to get this a little dirtier. Alright, so let's just take a look at how that compares to the unweathered tank. Matter of fact, I'll put the turret on to kind of show some of the difference here. You can see there is a clear difference. Let's get a regular tank to unpainted tank, an unweathered tank. So let's go ahead and do the turret real quick. Now here you can get a piece of foam and squeezing it, put it inside. That way you've got a convenient way to hold it. And then set this off to the side. There we go. And here definitely you want to weather the top more so than the sides, because the dust is definitely going to collect on the top. But again, vertically streaking. Okay, and again where you splatter, you can use that damp Q-tip to streak it down. Whoops, sorry, I was just a little too high. Wherever you splatter, or if you overshoot put too much on, you can use that damp alcohol-soaked Q-tip swab to kind of pull it down and blend it in a little bit more. So streaking again here. Kind of lightens, softens the effects a little bit. Alright, now let's take a look at that. So let's zoom this in a little bit. Okay. And now we've got two tanks, one weathered, one not. Okay. You can see, let's take a look here. It's a little on the uneven side, except for the rear. There it's a little bit more pronounced. On the side it's uneven, heavier in the back in this particular case. Okay, in the front it's light. It's a light weathering job on this particular tank. There we go. Hopefully it comes in better than on the LCD screen I was looking at. So, alright, well, anyway, that's how you do the basic weathering. Now let's take a quick look at applying that oil or gasoline spill look. But we're using non-oil. Just get yourself a simple, doesn't have to be a real good paintbrush, just any paintbrush will do. Get some on there. Now this is the fuel filler right here, and so we're going to apply spillage. Streak it down, and there it is. And the other side, we can do the same thing. Okay. Now that dries, will be just colored enough to look the part. Alright, so now that's just the first base coat, if you will, of weathering. You can go further if you want, and in fact, I probably will. I'm not certain if I want to go over with a dark sand here. I might do that just to get a little bit lighter. This is the right mud effect color, dust color I wanted, but I'm thinking for this commission, I think I want to go a little bit lighter. But what I might do is actually, instead of using an airbrush, I'll probably go and highlight it with some these earth tone chalks. I'll probably go with one of these colors here. So let that dry, and it's essentially, that's all there is really to airbrush weathering a tank. Very simple. You don't need a fancy airbrush. It does help though if you do have a gravity feed, so you can have a low PSI going through. You get a little better control over the paint flow. Okay. All right. So I hope that kind of helped give you some ideas. Maybe you learned something from it. If you have any suggestions, or other comments, go ahead and put them below. Let's kind of allow others who view this to get some ideas and glean from your expertise. Okay, that's, I think, one of the best things about these channels and our niche, our special ability to teach each other how to do different things. So there's the first stage of a Sherman that's weathered up pretty good, all ready to go to the battlefield. All right, so thanks a lot for watching. Thanks for sticking with me, and if you haven't already, share, like, and subscribe, especially if your buddies are into bolt action and maybe you're a little bit worried about using the airbrush for weathering. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.